We all have this ingrained habit of viewing Ava as the ultimate apex predator, the woman who is always 10 steps ahead and playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers. But if you ask me, we are currently witnessing a completely different reality. I firmly believe that Ava is walking completely blind into the most devastating and catastrophic trap of her entire life. She genuinely thinks she is the one orchestrating a brilliant masterstroke, pulling the strings from the shadows to get exactly what she wants. However, the bitter truth is that she is merely a pawn on a board controlled by someone whose ruthlessness she cannot even begin to comprehend. We are watching a master manipulator being expertly manipulated, and the sheer irony of it is both fascinating and terrifying to behold. To really understand the gravity of the situation, we have to look at the current landscape and this incredibly toxic, unholy alliance that has formed between Ava and Drew. Ava has a singular, blinding obsession right now. She wants to completely dismantle Sunny and secure absolute, uncontested custody of little Avery. To achieve this monumental task, she knows she cannot do it alone. She needs heavy firepower, financial backing, and strategic cunning, and she thinks she has found the absolute perfect weapon in Drew. But this is exactly where it gets interesting, guys. Ava assumes that Drew is just a convenient means to an end, a temporary ally who shares her deep-seated disdain for the mob boss. She is completely misreading the room and fundamentally underestimating the man she has invited into her inner circle. The reality is that Drew is not operating on Ava's level. He is playing a much wider, far more dangerous, and infinitely more ambitious game. His ultimate goal extends way beyond a simple family court custody dispute or a petty personal vendetta against a rival. Drew is eyeing the massive, lucrative vacuum that would be left in the underworld if Sunny is permanently removed from the board. Specifically, he is targeting the staggering assets and the vast network connected to Sidwell. Drew is a smart man. He knows that to secure that kind of absolute power and claim the empire for himself, Sunny cannot just be weakened or distracted by a custody battle. Sunny must be entirely eradicated, completely stripped of his power, his influence, and his family. Let us anchor this by looking at how Drew has been operating recently. If you have been paying attention, you have seen him completely shed that former golden boy hero persona. He has embraced a cold, calculating, and almost sociopathic ruthlessness. When he interacts with Ava, you can practically see the gears turning behind his eyes. He nods, he agrees with her plans, he plays the role of the supportive partner in crime to absolute perfection, but his body language tells a completely different story. He is actively studying her, finding the psychological cracks in her armor, and using her desperate obsession with Avery as his personal Trojan horse. He is letting Ava do all the heavy lifting of breaking down Sunny's defenses, all while keeping his true, sinister motives completely hidden in the dark. This brings us to the most chilling and heartbreaking part of my entire theory. Ava genuinely believes that she is utilizing Drew to protect Avery and secure a safe future for her daughter. In reality, she is actively handing Drew the master keys to the castle. Drew is fully aware that Sunny is heavily fortified. A direct frontal assault on the mob boss is essentially corporate and literal suicide. But Sunny has one glaring, undeniable vulnerability, a soft spot that he guards with his life but cannot completely shield from those who are allowed inside his inner circle. That ultimate vulnerability is Avery. And Ava, in her blind hatred for Sunny, is serving up that vulnerability on a silver platter. I strongly suspect that Drew is not planning to fight Sunny in the streets or engage in a traditional mob war. He is going to strike where it inflicts the most agonizing pain imaginable. By aligning himself so closely with Ava, Drew gains unprecedented, unquestioned access to Avery's daily routines, her security details, her nanny schedules, and her designated safe spaces. He can easily and quietly orchestrate a scenario where Avery is isolated, slipping the little girl out from under Sunny's massive protective umbrella, while Ava is completely distracted by her own plotting and scheming. Drew is positioning himself to execute the ultimate betrayal, using the mother's trust to access the child. Think about how Ava usually operates when she is backed into a corner or consumed by a goal. She gets severe tunnel vision. When she wanted to push out her rivals in the past, or when she was consumed by her desire for the gallery, she completely ignored the collateral damage until it was literally staring her in the face. Right now, her hatred for Sunny is so all-consuming, so incredibly toxic, that she is blatantly ignoring the massive red flags waving right in front of her face regarding Drew. She is so focused on the prize of destroying Sunny that she is practically drawing a detailed treasure map to her daughter for a man who is increasingly proving that he has absolutely no moral boundaries left. But let us not make the mistake of underestimating the man who has been sitting at the head of the table for decades. Sunny is not some passive player just sitting around waiting to be dethroned and stripped of his family. I highly doubt that he is oblivious to the whispers, the shifting loyalties, and the clandestine meetings happening right under his nose. Sunny has survived countless wars, betrayals, and assassination attempts in this brutal business precisely because he has an uncanny ability to smell a betrayal before it even fully materializes. If you ask me, Sunny already knows that Ava and Drew are quietly conspiring against him. He can feel the shift in the atmosphere. If Sunny is indeed aware of their alliance, then his current silence is absolutely terrifying. It means he is patiently watching them weave their own news. Sunny might be waiting for Ava and Drew to make the first definitive, undeniable move so that he can crush them both with absolute, brutal justification. However, even Sunny, with all his paranoia and strategic brilliance, might not anticipate the sheer, unadulterated depravity of Drew's true master plan. Sunny might be expecting a financial attack, a hostile corporate takeover, or even a squad of hitmen. But the idea of Drew actually weaponizing little Avery might be the one blind spot that catches the seasoned mob boss completely off guard. Now, I have to stop right here and play devil's advocate with myself for a second, because we really need to look at both sides of this coin. Are we honestly believing that Drew would go this far? Would he actually stoop to the level of kidnapping a child, leveraging an innocent little girl to dismantle a mob empire and steal the assets of Sidwell? The old Drew, the man who valued honor and family above all else, would never in a million years cross that line. But the man we are watching on our screens right now, the trauma he endured, the betrayals he suffered, and this new, relentless drive for absolute supremacy have fundamentally altered his psychology. When you look at the massive stakes involving Sidwell and the absolute power that is currently up for grabs, it is not entirely impossible to think that Drew now views Avery not as a living, breathing child, but simply as the ultimate bargaining chip. Imagine the exact moment the horrifying truth finally crashes down on Ava. It will be a scene of absolute soul-crushing devastation. She will realize that her grand, brilliant scheme to secure her daughter's future was the exact mechanism that put her daughter directly in the crosshairs of a ruthless madman. The psychological horror of knowing that she personally opened the door, invited the monster inside, and handed over her precious child is enough to completely break even someone as hardened and cynical as Ava. It will be the ultimate tragic irony of her entire life. When that realization finally hits, we are going to see Ava undergo a radical, instantaneous transformation. The burning hatred she harbors for Sunny will instantly evaporate, replaced by a primal, desperate, and ferocious need to save her child at any cost. She will recognize, in the most bitter pill of irony she has ever had to swallow, that Sunny was actually the only one keeping Avery truly safe. The massive fortress she spent months desperately trying to tear down from the inside out was the only thing standing between her daughter and the wolves circling in the dark. This devastating revelation will force an explosive and highly emotional realignment. Ava will have absolutely no choice but to crawl back to Sunny, confessing her monumental sins and begging for his help and resources. Can you even begin to imagine the sheer intensity of that conversation? Sunny, realizing that the mother of his child nearly got their daughter killed out of pure spite and ambition, and Ava, completely stripped of all her immense pride and arrogance, offering her own life in exchange for Avery's safety. They will be forced to put aside a lifetime of toxic warfare, betrayals, and hatred to face a mutual, existential threat that threatens to destroy the one thing they both love. And what exactly happens when Ava inevitably turns her fury on Drew? If she tries to threaten him, expose him, or pull the plug on their clandestine operation, she will quickly discover just how incredibly expendable she always was to him. Drew never saw her as an equal partner. She was always just a tool to be used and discarded. If Ava pushes him into a corner and tries to play the protective mother, I fully believe that Drew would not hesitate for a single second to eliminate her. He has become ruthless enough to sacrifice Ava without a second thought if it ensures that his iron grip on the Empire and his master plan remains secure. We are currently hurtling at breakneck speed toward a climax that will inevitably leave the entire town in absolute ruin. Avery is tragically poised to become the innocent epicenter of a brutal, unforgiving war between three incredibly dangerous, highly motivated people. Sonny will be forced into the impossible position of choosing between preserving his lifelong empire and saving his vulnerable daughter. Meanwhile, Ava will have to navigate a living nightmare of her own making, fighting a terrifying monster that she actively helped create and empower. The board is completely set, and the pieces are moving rapidly toward a catastrophic, unavoidable collision. Ava arrogantly thought she was playing a sophisticated game of chess, but Drew is playing a deadly game of Russian roulette, and he just handed her a fully loaded gun. If Drew really pulls the trigger and crosses the ultimate unforgivable line with Avery, it will unleash a dark, violent version of Sonny and Ava that Port Charles has never truly seen before. The only lingering question we have to ask ourselves is whether, when the smoke finally clears and the dust settles, there will be anything left of them to save.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.